I'm Jim Edmonson. This is Port Aransas, a collection of memories. Sam Allen is here to tell us about business and commerce in early Port Aransas. Mr. Allen came to Port Aransas in March 1951 from Dallas, where he had previously worked in real estate. He purchased and operated the Port Aransas Mercantile Store. He operated that store until 1970, when Cecilia came through and destroyed it. At that time, he retired from business and presently lives on the island with his wife, Beatrice. Thank you, Mr. Allen, for joining us this evening. Mr. Allen, I think one of the easiest ways for us to start on this interview this evening would be to show a photograph of your store.
All right.
And let the people at home know about the early businessman and his venture on the island. This is the Port Aransas Mercantile. Looks like groceries is the main feature at the top. Dry goods, meats, beer, picnic supplies. Where was this store located, Mr. Allen?
It's corner of White and Alice Street.
White and Allenstown. Okay. What's that on that site now? Is that where the connoisseur or behind the connoisseur?
Well, it's Souvenir City.
Souvenir City's there.
Yeah.
Okay. And this store was originally built by whom?
By Bob Gaulding.
Bob Gaulding.
Yeah.
And do you remember when this building was built?
No, I don't. I imagine it was built along about 30.
1930. And he operated until you purchased it from him.
That's right.
Okay. And it's operated at White and Allister. And what were the main things that you had to sell at your store?
Anything from a fish hook up to a big refrigerator.
That covered a lot of territory. Were you about the only dry goods dealer on the island
At that time, yes, sir.
And the population of the island is around what?
Around 500.
Around 500. What were the hours of your store?
Well, we opened up at 6 in the morning and tried to close by 8 at night. Sometimes we was there till 10.
And what caused you to open so early and close so late?
Well, we had to open early. We had to go down there and make a list of all our needs for the day. And then at that time, we had to operate 2 trucks. And it costed $5 to take one of those trucks across the ferry. And they didn't have the access road down the island at that time. And that was the only way we could,
Okay, you're sending trucks for your supplies.
everything.
And
Yes, sir.
where are they getting most of these supplies?
Half a dozen different stops over in Corpus. The wholesale meat company, the wholesale milk company, and the grocery companies, and first one thing. Now then, another thing is, at that time, it cost $1 for the inhabitants, residents, to go to cross the ferry. So they'd bring all their chores down to our store, and we'd take them across for them. We'd take their watches over there to be repaired, and their shoes to be half soled, and we'd have to match a spool of thread. And if we got the wrong color, we'd have to take it back.
The next day or the next week. What were some of the prices like at this time that you can remember? I only want this for a reference point.
I think pinto beans were 10 cents a pound. And I believe bacon was about 20 cents a pound, as well as I remember. And what was
Were most of the goods that you sold at this time, Mr. Allen, were most of them being sold to people here on the island?
Oh,
Or, and because at this time there were still not that many visitors, or
No, not too many.
you'd get some on weekends, or
Yes, and of course we had a few permanent homes here. People with means, like Brown and Root's bunch, they had a home here, and the Murchisons and people like that, but they were exceptions. Most of our trade was strictly local.
was it all cash trade, or was it?
No, sir, it wasn't.
I remember.
That's what kept
I can remember when I was a young child that a lot of the business, and especially right after the war years or during the war years, it was a lot of good faith and credit.
Yeah. That store, when storm destroyed our store, I had about $10,000 on the books I had collected. Yeah,
Now, the store, was it mostly you and your wife operating it,
Yes.
or did you have any employees?
well, we had employees, yes. We had about 6 employees.
Gosh, that was a pretty good operation.
Yeah.
You had to have someone to drive the truck,
Yeah.
and you had to have someone to, I guess, to help out load stuff for people.
Yeah. And another thing we had a laundry agency. We went around all tourist courts and picked up their linens and took them over to laundry in Corpus. And they laundered them, and we come back the next day and picked it up and delivered it all around the different courts.
I like that, because I think, gosh, just this year that we're doing this interview, I think full laundry, dry cleaning and everything just finally came to the island this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're actually doing it here on the island, but there are a lot of things that Port Aransas has always done without.
Yeah.
And someone had to go round it up for them. Did you sell water or drinking water
Oh,
from the
yeah,
store?
yeah.
And was that a big business?
Well, not too big, because most of the natives drank the local water.
Now, where was the local water? Where did they get their local
They got
water?
it from Miss Gibbs was down out of Points. They had points up in the sand dunes, and they had a gathering system up there for it, but it was brackish. And of course the natives got used to it and didn't mind it, but the visitors didn't like it much. And we, as you see on that picture there, see this case over here?
Uh-huh.
It's got 5 gallons of water all in there.
5 gallon
Stacked
water
in there.
bottles.
Yeah.
And you picked these up in Corpus Christi and
Yes,
brought
sir.
them back.
Yes, sir.
Water's heavy to haul, too.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of room.
And milk, we brought in all the milk.
When did, I think we decided earlier, we were talking a little bit earlier, and water, or a municipal supply of water came to the island in about 1958?
Something like that.
Something like that. Do you remember where the line was from? Was it from Aransas Pass?
No, it was the Nueces County Water and Improvement District was the name of it. And it come across the channel. We had a line coming across the channel. Of course, it had to be buried underneath the channel. It's a pretty expensive operation. We had to go to bond this year, put it over. But that's the way our first water came.
And
Later, the road down the highway down the island opened up, and we had water coming up that way too.
They brought water that way?
Yes, sir. That was much later than this, though.
Actually, that would probably be the beginning of, let's just call it just a local conversation, probably the beginning of the modern boom in Puerto Rico. When they got the water here, then I imagine the sewage began to follow suit within a few years.
Yeah.
And then you could start in more or less commercial development, things like that. What other businesses, commercial enterprises were operating on the island at the time that you're operating the store?
Well, we had several cafes and restaurants. We had 2 or 3 fish houses, caught and processed fish, and we had a number of tourist courts, and
Seems like most of the business though is still centered around fishing.
oh yes, yep.
Always has for some of them. There was a time, I remember reading in some of the stuff I was reading this summer, Mr. Allen, there was a time when they thought though, and that's how the name even got drug into it, that Port Aransas was going to be the big commercial center, the tank farms and all that and everything, and the docks and the wharfs. But do you remember much about that? And then they dug the channel on the Corpus, and
No, that's for about that.
and it just sort of got away from Port Aransas and went right on the Corpus.
That's right.
Do you remember any interesting tales that developed with your business while you operated it? Some interesting or unusual
No, I
events?
can tell you some tales that were before my time.
Okay.
E.H.R. Green, Hetty Green's son, had a cottage over on St. Joe, and he had a motorboat, but he didn't, and nobody knew how to run it. So he sent old Mr. Cotter, who was an old timer here. He sent him,
Cotter?
yeah. He sent him up to Chicago to learn how to run a motorboat.
You have a motorboat, you better find some place to learn how
Yeah.
to operate it.
So he came back and operated green boat for him.
Mr. Allen, I sure do appreciate you showing up this evening for the interview and sharing your memories with us. Certainly everyone now realizes that early business, and especially when you were hauling such things as water, bread,
Milk.
and milk, and bread, and daily goods, this is every day.
Every day.
And you operate 7 days a week.
Yeah.
That it was definitely a business venture. And thank you, Mr. Allen, for sharing your memories of Port Aransas with us.
Okay.